The Washington Metro is a railway of the future, but already operating today thanks to microelectronics. The entire system is run by computers. It's not perfect, of course. Even computers aren't totally reliable yet. It's supposed to gobble your money up, not spit it back at you. But once it's decided you're not trying to rook it, it does deliver the goods. Here, there are no queues for tickets, no clerks to issue them or inspectors to punch them. In fact, you don't see many railway men or women about at all. The only people really in evidence are the passengers. The system is clean, modern and efficient. All the work is done quickly, safely and economically by computers. The computers don't only monitor the fare and ticket collection, but they also control the trains themselves. They're almost fully automatic. The computers regulate the speed, what time they arrive at the station. They apply the brakes and start the train up again. If anything goes wrong, then they'll automatically cut everything off. And there are even computers which monitor those computers. The Washington Metro has all the advantages of a completely new system.
500.
Because there wasn't a railway here before, computerizing the operation wasn't going to put existing railwaymen out of work. That's why the unions were willing to accept these low staffing levels.
The station, the exit's on G Street at 7th and 9th.
Roger, going too far. Roger.
Now, it would be possible for passengers like me to be the only human beings involved, but as you've just heard, there is one person on board the train because they've deliberately built in a human factor.
People like to know that there's people with people. So we have a computerized system to the edge of the state of the art. But then we always have a human being that you can contact. In the mezzanine, there is always a person that you can ask for directions. Or if one of the machines goes down or goes bad, then he can make minor repairs. In the head of the train announcements are made with a real live human being, even though we're capable of making it computerized.
What's the real significance of using new technology on this? Is it a pointer to what everything's going to be like in the future?
It makes it safer, it makes it more even of operation, it makes it cheaper than hiring hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people whose salaries go up continually through the ages, whereas the machinery doesn't. But it gives a wider horizon, wider mobility to the people themselves.
Mobility is the key to the American way of life. It's the land of the drive-in. Another key word is convenience. And here in a Texas supermarket, those convenience foods are sold through a system which is convenient for the supermarket as well as for the customer. Every item on the shelves is labeled with a pattern of stripes. It's called a barcode. If you could read it, it would give you a lot of information about what you're buying. At the checkout, there's a machine which can read the barcode. The pattern of stripes is scanned by a laser. From it, a computer identifies the item and the price and prints out a detailed receipt. Soon, the same computer will be telling the manager when it's time to order fresh stocks. The cashiers have become packers. They can deal with 50 items a minute instead of 30. The whole system reduces the need for clerks, bookkeepers, and accountants. In New York, even banking is going the self-service way. This is the headquarters of Citibank. It's one of the most modern banks in the world. At Citibank, you don't queue up at the cashier's desk. Paying in, taking money out, it's all automatic. In this field at least, these customers don't seem to miss the social contact with other people. Up in the bank's head offices, it's the same story. Computers are standard equipment. That's the office postman, and it's not what you'd expect. Once, of course, a human being used to walk around these offices delivering and collecting the mail. And now they've got Beeper, the electronically controlled robot mailman. And he does the journey in about 20 minutes, all on his own. But the irony is that elsewhere in this building, they already have electronically controlled offices. So the mail and the written word are fast becoming obsolete, and that could well put Beeper out of business. The office memo is now disappearing. It's being replaced by word processor systems. Instead of typewriters, the secretaries sit at computer terminals, controlled by silicon chips. They call them workstations, and they could soon be commonplace in any office anywhere. So what can they do?
Well, I'm able to call up Mr. White's weekly calendar.
His diary, you mean?
His diary.
Yeah.
He's got a calendar through 1980 on the system. And if they ask me to book a meeting in 1985, I can do it.
He's going to be a busy man, isn't he?
Very busy.
What else does he do?
Well, I can type for him.
On that?
Yes. And store it away. And put it in his inbox electronically. And he can look at it inside his office if he wants to make his changes. If I can trust him to type it in, he can store it away and I can just look at it again. And
What about mail? I mean, how does it work as far as letters and posting is concerned?
I can draft the memo, have Bob's okay on it, and immediately mail it to California. They'll receive it in about 2 minutes over the telephone lines.
So that's a lot quicker than letters, let's face it.
Yes, and we'll get an immediate response because they can mail it back 2 minutes later if they're ready and prepared.
So you've learned to depend upon this?
Depend upon it. I wouldn't know what to do without it. I very rarely sharpen my pencils.
Overall, there probably ends up having to be less people. But I think you end up with fewer jobs, with greater job satisfaction for the people that are there. It improves the jobs significantly for the staffs. Requires some upgrading of the staffs, but in terms of pay scale, most of the jobs that we've had have gone up significantly for the people, and the amount of job content and stuff that they've had have been very, very good.
Soon, magnetic disk or tape memories may be replaced by new methods of storing information with even greater capacities. This is similar to the video disk, only it'll be used to store data. It's a new development which will be available in about 3 years' time. Now, it's really a gigantic memory bank, and what a memory it's got. A laser is used to burn tiny little holes into a covering inside the plastic, and it'll take 10 billion little bits of information, and that's what they look like magnified. Now, you can only use superlatives to describe a thing like this. For example, you could get the entire Encyclopedia Britannica on one disk. Or if you wanted to, you could store the names of every single person in Britain. And that's 55 million names. One disk like that could store all the data held in these filing cabinets. In industries where work means pushing information around, like banking and insurance, the consequences could be dramatic, halving a workforce in an office like this because these people are replaced by a chip.
Overall, it must mean a diminishing of the number of jobs available, not only in the UK, but in every industrialised country, in Europe, in the United States, absolutely everywhere. It will also go on over a considerable time period. This diminishing will go on perhaps over 20, 30, maybe even up to 50 years. And whilst you look at life and you think, well, it may have happened before, we've had industrial revolutions before, we haven't got a 50-year period to play with, we haven't even got a 20-year period to play with.
If one looks what has happened in the past, since the computer industry started, for example, I think there's no evidence whatsoever to say that people have been put out of work. In the 1950s, for example, we thought that the computer would take over everything. It really hasn't. And in fact, the number of jobs in Europe, for example, associated with the data processing, I would guess will be something like 1 million now, where there was 0 25 years ago.
Your view is exactly the opposite to that held by a lot of trade union leaders who say that there's going to be widespread unemployment, that prospects of, say, 5 million unemployed in this country are not unrealistic.
I think it's just rubbish. I think, frankly, no one knows what's going to happen. The CBI, a couple of years ago, did a study which said that if we got just 1% more of the world trade, of manufacturing industry, then we would get 400,000 jobs in this country.
I think we could probably produce our present output of goods and services with something like 20% of our current labour force.
But that means that we may have to face the possibility of up to 80% unemployment in normal manufacturing industries among people for whom we have no further jobs.
I don't think that will happen. In my opinion, if we embrace the new technology and use it, it will create many new jobs. It will create a very significant shift of jobs, and new products and new industries can be built to replace the old ones.
The technological change is happening so fast. Will ordinary people be able to change their ideas quickly enough to keep up? At Texas Instruments in America, it takes 20 seconds to beam a message by satellite to any part of the company anywhere in the world. Compared with that, transferring information on paper seems positively medieval. Electronic mail is bound to spread to other international firms. Eventually, our own personal letters could be electronic too. The need for postmen and sorters would be a fraction of what it is now. And the threat of unemployment for these men isn't the only worry. With bigger data banks, more and more international hookups, information passing from one computer to another computer, how will we decide who manipulates the networks? West Germany has the world's most sophisticated police computer system. At demonstrations, faces in the crowd are photographed. By measuring key distances between the nose, eye and mouth, the computer can put a name to the face in seconds. It's a powerful weapon in the fight against crime, but it could also be a political weapon. If all the agencies of the state are linked by computer, health records, tax records, police records, then any agent of the state can have immediate access to private information on any citizen.
Well, the capacity to control society because of this technology is almost limitless, unfortunately. That's why we've got to be so vigilant it's untrue. You see, we're going to have immense databases, amounts of information which could go into everyone's home. Someone's going to control that. You can't do it without this technology. You're going to have personnel records built up at work. You're going to be able to link computer to computer. You're going to have to be able to link computers across continents, just bouncing off of satellites. Human beings won't come into it. And the amount of information and data which is going from one bit to the other bit, if that is just allowed free rein and you get some unfortunately nasty people controlling that data, then I really think it's God help society.
You will have new data information available through your television set with Prestel and CFAX and view data and so on. So increasingly people will be able to call up instantly vast amounts of information, and in my opinion only the experts are going to be able to cope with this. So it does present a real understanding credibility problem.
What we're doing, in fact, then, is the danger of creating two sorts of society: those who know and have the power of that knowledge, and those who don't know.
Indeed.
And the vast bulk of us
Indeed.
apply.
And if I had to say what is the most important thing this nation has got to do, it has got to improve its education, the whole population. So increasingly people are helped to understand this sort of thing, and increasingly people can be retrained for a new and different career. So in the whole field of handling education and flow of information, that is our single biggest problem area.
Forward 20, left 90, forward 20.
At the University of Edinburgh, local school children are already benefiting from work which uses the new technology. They're using a robot to construct geometric figures. It helps them to learn geometry, and it also teaches them about programming computers. There aren't many examples like this in Britain, and yet it's vital that future generations should be trained to cope with the new technology. Before long, the skills of manipulating a computer could be quite as important in ordinary, everyday life as reading and writing are today.
Okay, so what are you doing now then?
I'm getting it to move up towards the right and copy it.
Okay, so what do you have?
As well as new skills, whole new attitudes of mind will have to be developed.
Children should know what they can do, what they can't do, and dream about the things they might do in the future, and that's an important part of education. The other thing is that, viewed in quite a different way, you can think of the computer or programming a computer as actually disciplining the mind in a way that is reminiscent of the teaching of Latin. People used to argue that learning Latin disciplined your thought. And when you program a computer, you really have to think out the problem very precisely in a step-by-step fashion.
So this is sort of, what, new Latin?
And it's like a new Latin almost.
Once the computer skills have been mastered, the technology makes information much more widely available. At this hospital near Edinburgh, junior doctors are being trained to use computers in diagnosis. The doctor asks the patient a series of set questions. The information on the form is then fed into the computer. By comparing the patient's symptoms with information held in its memory bank, the computer suggests possible diagnosis and their probability. Now, a senior consultant could do this from his own knowledge and experience, but the computer brings a similar range of knowledge within reach of junior doctors.
Their accuracy coming a year after qualification is about 50% without the system. With the system of documentation and the computer, their mean average is about 75, which is very close to consultant accuracy.
How does the machine do that?
The machine disciplines the young doctor to ask the right questions.
The thing is, though, computers can go wrong. You always hear of the extra £1 million you've got on your bank account.
Well, the machine is as good as the information that's put into it in the first instance. So if the young doctor takes a bad history or examines incorrectly, the machine will come up with something that may not be correct. But it has far more items to compare and is more likely to be right than the doctor.
In professional careers, as well as in offices and factories, computers are becoming tools of the trade. In this architect's office, designs for complete buildings are being drawn up and modified by microelectronics. But as the technology multiplies and the skills change, will some of our old manpower be left behind? Will we turn into two nations? Those who have the skills and the training to use the new technology, and those who haven't. And does that mean that in the new order, some of us may have no working place at all?
Well, funnily enough, I think it's basically people in what are presently called semi-skilled trades. Jobs, in other words, which can easily be taken over by machines. Curiously enough, they're the kind of things that are rather highly valued as jobs in our society at the moment, because the combination of brain and hand and eye skills, say machine tool operation and things like that, very easily performed by machines. Now, the sort of things that at the moment we rather debase and turn our noses up at, the service industries, being a waitress, let's say, or someone who cuts hair. Now, these are things which are going to be an awful long time before you actually get a robot which is going to come and serve you a decent meal or cut your hair with any degree of safety. So I think that those things, the service industries, are going to expand rather.
First of all, I think there'll be those people associated with creativity, creation of one kind or another. The artists, the potters, I think all sorts of creative work will go on. Secondly, excuse me, I think that I will see that there will be a development in what I call generally the caring industries. And I suppose the third thing is just generally the development of the leisure industries, the service industries, and I would see really quite an increase in employment opportunities provided by those service industries.
We need more healthcare. We don't treat the mentally and physically handicapped properly. We don't educate people properly. And they're all people-to-people jobs. And you can start training people to actually do those sort of jobs. A second way of doing it is to actually work share. To say, look, we work too much anyway. Why is life all about working? Why isn't it about leisure and work and families and work? In which case, I happen to think you diminish the number of trips to work rather than shorten the working week. You go for 3-day weekends, 4-day weekends, things like that.
The work ethic, which has been a dominant thing for a very long time, is going to have to disappear. It's an old thing summed up in the phrase, the devil finds work for idle hands to do. It was always thought to be improper to sit around doing nothing. Now, the microprocessor, as have previous developments in technology, is going to make the world more affluent. And following the trend, the historical trend, it's going to mean that society pays people more and more money to do less and less work.
The problem on the whole is an economic problem, because the whole question of the allocation of employment, who's at work and who isn't at work, means that if we have tension there, it means that some people have, some people will have not. They will have differential access in the sense they can buy more goods and services if they're at work. But that pattern of employment, that pattern of work allocation and therefore income allocation, is not likely to be uniformly distributed. The old, the young, the unskilled, the coloured workers, the centres of old and decaying industries, all those will be badly hit. Now, is that fair? I suspect it not only is not fair, but it's going to make an intolerable society. On the other hand, if we can find the transitional adjustment and see how to make a more fair society on that basis, then the overwhelming good that can come about this technology, the access to new goods and services, the wonders of medicine and science, better ways of looking after each other, better ways of caring for each other, it could be a wonderful, brave new world. And I feel on the whole, the good will outweigh the bad, provided that we take stock and make our plans accordingly.